that should be interesting. A river that should be interesting to explore. Any comments? It's going to be fun, we hope. I found myself in 1993 driving across Louisiana for the first time, and I stopped at a park just inside the border, and I was really struck by how beautiful the swamp was and the big trees with the moss draping down and blowing in the wind. It looked like a wonderful place, and the more I learned about Louisiana, the more interesting it sounded to possibly go canoeing there. And Heath and I, in our young, reckless, youthful way, decided that the best way to experience this might be in a Tom Sawyerish sort of approach, where we would try to paddle down to where the Mississippi River met the Gulf of Mexico. Exactly how we would do that, we weren't exactly sure, but we knew it would involve a van and a canoe and some camping equipment, and we figured it would be pretty straightforward exactly which way we should go downstream.
This trip started as just sort of a whimsical idea. We knew about Louisiana, and it seemed like a really intriguing place. And so we looked at a map, and we saw that there was a road that went all the way down to the end of the Mississippi Delta. And we thought, hey, wouldn't that be a cool place to go canoeing? We'd gotten pretty good at camping by this point, after adventures we'd taken. So, we took out the back seat of the Aerostar, we loaded in our stuff, we had a plan. We were going to drive to New Orleans, drive down 23, go to Venice, put in the canoe there, and see what we found. It was going to be great.
This is the Huey Long Mississippi River Bridge, named after a former governor of Louisiana. And off to our right, we have the Mississippi River. Urban version.
This trip, we felt, was emblematic of the founding philosophies of this country. To just go and do. That if you have the initiative, you can make it happen. And so we did.
We had a little trouble on the way with the canoe trying to fall off the top of the car, but fortunately we experimented enough to where we came up with a system that worked. So we will be able to go canoeing today. We're in the suburbs south of New Orleans, driving along roads that will take us to a Route 36 that runs along the Mississippi River. And I'm just kind of impressed by how well this area has copied the decorations and urban planning of most of Houston. In fact, it looks more like Houston than Houston does.
We took this trip in more innocent times. This was before questionable presidential elections, terror attacks, a declared war on terror, extremes of national political polarization, before the start of wars in the Middle East that would stretch beyond the end of the decade. Ours was a trip unwittingly taken in a world whose days were rapidly dwindling. The further we got from New Orleans, and the deeper along Highway 23 we drove, the more foreign the landscape became.
We've come far enough south that the Highway 23 is now a 2-lane road.
But it seemed the further out on the Delta we got, things became more and more functional in form. Human settlements were just prefabricated materials dumped in a spot and assembled and then maintained in whatever way was most economical and most expedient.
It seemed like the further away we got from civilization, the less consumer goods we saw, the less things from malls. It seemed like the cars got older and older, and the houses became more authentic, like they were built with carpenters and hammers and nails, not just brought in as panels from some plastic company.
Since childhood, my brother and I had gone on adventures. When I was 2.5 and he was 7, it was a picnic at the end of the street with a red wagon. Later, it was exploring the woods behind our subdivision. On our adventures had progressed, and now we were on the Mississippi Delta as young men.
Shame on you, taking a picture and driving at the same time.
Everything down there was just sort of boiled and sun-bleached. Colors were muted because of the constant abuse of the sun. Structures, unless they were made out of steel or concrete, were warped because of the constant humidity. You'd pass houses and the front porches would just sort of be undulating. It's like everything was just in a steam bath every day for 9 months out of the year.
Welcome to Venice, Louisiana. It's a beautiful place. Here's the high school built and completely on stilts.
As we got closer to Venice, it was like things were just good enough to do the job. I think it started to seem more industrial, like there were no master plan community people in charge out there. It was just like natural things, like a levee, a road, some shacks and houses. Just what people really needed, not what they needed to show off. And I like the genuineness of it.
Venice, Louisiana was the end of the road, in the purest sense. There's even a sign down there that says, "This is the furthest south on the Mississippi Delta."
Wow. It's the end of the road.
It's this barren landscape of shrimp boats and fishing shacks and beat-up old pickup trucks, shabby-looking dogs that bark at you, and weathered recreational watercraft, rusting infrastructure, and people who keep to themselves. But we liked it. Venice, Louisiana was a very masculine world. Purely functional. Things are just what they are and nothing more. Stuff is just sort of left where it falls, and it's just a bunch of guys doing their thing. And that's what the town was in our eyes. We felt very comfortable there.
We have arrived at our destination. We had to kind of find where we're going to stay, and we're going to stay here at the Venice Marina. Lots of shrimp boats. Access to the water. And a nice place to pitch a tent.
You know, this has a sort of grapes of wrath feel to it.
Yes, there's nothing like cooking in the great outdoors. Yum. Beautiful, delicious Philly cheesesteak sandwiches after a long day of traveling. Haha. Let's eat.
Since I had a video camera that was pretty old, we couldn't really prove that we did this, but after our long day and our Philly cheesesteak sandwiches and everything, we just couldn't stand to sit around. I mean, we were ready to go canoeing, so we did, even though it was nighttime. And with the kerosene lantern in the canoe out on the bayou, it was really a beautiful scene. Heath asked me about motivation for this trip, and I think the motivation I have is seeing these kind of beautiful moments that you don't expect, but you know when you go on a trip like this, you're going to have some, and it's really, really cool, even though we didn't get it on film.
After the fog clears, we hope to find the Mississippi River and paddle on it. We think it would be safer when the fog clears because we do not have a foghorn. So Heath,
Yes,
you think it'll work?
absolutely,
I do too.
without a doubt.
And it's going to save so much time.
Not who we are without it, knowing that it's going to work.
Yes. Too bad the river's so far away. One last look at civilization.
Ours was a decidedly homemade style of adventuring. No yuppie Gore-Tex and carabiners. It was all mason jars, bungee cords, and held fast with electrical tape. All of it with a minimum of planning. It was very exciting. And clearly, we really didn't think about the dangers.
We're now actually paddling, heading toward the Mississippi. This is one of the many channels that crosses the Mississippi Delta.
When we got started canoeing the next day to go find the Mississippi and where it joined the Gulf, we were off to a good start, seeing giant boats, shrimp boats, and so forth, but we soon became frustrated. An old lady in a swamp shack told us to go one way, some fishermen told us to go another way, and each way that people told us to go took like hours. We were really getting quite frustrated, and we seemed to be lost in a maze of bayous. So Heath did quite an amazing thing of standing up in a canoe and hitchhiking from a tugboat. And even more amazing, they stopped and asked us where we wanted to go. So that was kind of a miracle. And they tied up our canoe with a rope about 4 inches in diameter, and we climbed on, and they started down the bayou with our canoe bouncing along behind. That was a very easy, peaceful experience compared to when they stopped the tugboat and said, "Well, here you are." We were out in the middle of this giant body of water. It was probably a mile across. I had a depth sounder on the canoe that was registering more than 100 feet deep. We had oil tankers, and in general, it was extremely intimidating.
This is the Mississippi River. And it sure feels like it.
Couldn't have timed that better.
Yeah.
Damn.
I'm going to put the camera in a plastic Ziploc bag now. And we have a long way to paddle back. But here we are at the official Mississippi River. We made it. And the water's nice and cold, isn't it?
Very refreshing. Wakes us up.
Lots of industrial development along here. In general, it's a nice harbor kind of scene. And now we'll dump the canoe out and head on back.
Yep,
I think it's been a good trip.
it has.
That is the barge pushing boat that gave us a ride. What a bunch of helpful guys. Just imagine this going on and on and on for about 4 hours. And that's pretty much the rest of the tape.
After all the excitement with the tugboat and the swamping and just the general panic of being out in the middle of a giant industrial harbor, it was an amazing moment to realize that, like Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn in the slanting golden sunlight of the afternoon, that all we had to do was paddle back to our campsite. We had fulfilled our mission as well as we could, knowing that we could relax and we were done. And that sort of beautiful scene, that's a motivation for going on trips like this, is the unexpected, beautiful situations. If people asked me, did you ever feel unsafe? Did you ever feel like your life was in danger, mortal danger? I might have been concerned about ship propellers, but I always felt like in the end we would just float. We had life preservers. The water level was what it was, and no matter what happened to the canoe, we could always float and swim to the side of the river. So I never really thought to be scared.
So we got another free life jacket.
Some poor sap didn't make it. The life jacket's ours, man. Woo! Whatever it takes, and it gives.
Time for dinner.
I'm all for that.
Thinking about that trip and why did we do that, I think all the beautiful moments were really the motivation, the excitement of the adventure led us out there, but really it was incredibly dangerous.
I guess I think about the character of the trips Hans and I have taken. We just get an idea, and then we throw ourselves out into the situation and see what happens. To me, that's one of the most exciting prospects of living in this country, is that you can still dream the impossible dream. That optimism and attitude of, let's go and see if we can do this. Let's go and explore this frontier, this new horizon. And thankfully, it was still there to be explored.